Turn
Oh,
that
fuzzy
on.
down, fuzzy down.
Fuzzy? No.
It's the fuzzy. Come on, fuzz.
It's not.
It's not the fuzz.
If the fuzzy goes off, it's no big deal.
There you go.
It's like a wind.
It's not gonna help my peas. Pussy, pussy, pussy. Might be saying that a lot. Who knows?
It might be. I wonder if your hair is gonna rub on.
I come over here.
I'll just gently
Move the hair.
move here. All right, I think we're good. This is recording. That's recording. Check,
I can always check
check.
myself. The camera. Oh, hair. In there.
Check. Yeah, so you can actually look at yourself in the thing. Is that going to make you nervous?
No.
We can turn that. No. Amy.
Hey.
Amy what? Baldwin?
Baldwin.
Amy Baldwin. I'm here with Amy Baldwin in Santa Cruz, California.
California.
My first night in Anthropology 27 tour.
That's what it's called.
It is at
Oh,
at
I
the
didn't know it had a
moment.
name.
At the moment it does.
Wow. This
Maybe I
is a
should
big
make some
tour.
t-shirts.
Yeah,
huh?
you should.
You know, get into this shit.
And you had your first night in your van.
First night in the van. Oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna rub it in, aren't you?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
gonna rub it in. So what we're referring to is that Amy came back late from what was it, a dildo conference or a blowjob
I was at
seminar?
I went and taught a private blowjob class to a group of women for a bachelorette party.
A bachelorette party.
Yes.
And how many women were there?
This one had 8 people, 8 women.
I'm just gonna reclick
Oh yeah,
you a
fix
little
me.
closer
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
8 women.
Yes, 8 women.
So
And-
let's get back to that. The point, the rubbing it in, so to speak, was that we went out and had a couple of drinks, and then Amy was falling asleep, and she took me back to my van and said, "Oh, by the way, here's a bottle of lube, loser. Enjoy
I
your
did
first
not say
night in your
loser.
van." It was implied.
Oh, that's an exaggeration about
You know, I thought about that afterwards, and I was thinking, like, is this like the best sort of way to end an evening with a woman, or the worst?
she's just like, here, have fun with yourself.
Yeah,
Go
like,
wank
hey,
yourself.
I'm going to bed. Here's some lube. It's not my problem, dude.
Well, the intention was for it to be a gift because, in my opinion, it's an amazing lube. It's Uber lube and it's super
Uber
silky.
lube?
Uber, they were around before the car company.
Really?
Yep, it's the Uberist of
Good,
lube,
it's a good name for it.
and they're not German. So
Lube, Uber,
Uber lube.
Yeah, they're
So
not
now-
German.
No, they're not German.
So it's not Nazi lube.
No, it's not Nazi lube. Exactly, it's Nazi free, and
Totally Nazi
it's
free.
good for what is the name of your tour again?
Anthropology 2017,
Vanthropology.
baby.
That's perfect. Van life. Yeah. So now you have
'Cause
a
I'm
little
an
accessory.
anthropologist.
You never know when you're gonna need the lube in the Vanthropology admission. And it works for multi-purpose, right? It's not just for sex. You can use it for.
I think you do know when you're going to need the lube, don't you?
Probably, probably.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it coming. Yeah. So Anthropology 2017, Uber Lube.
Sponsored by Uber.
Sponsored. I'm gonna get a big like decal on the side of the van.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm looking for sponsors. Why not?
I'm sure they would sponsor it.
Yeah. Come on.
They're pretty awesome people.
Coming to a town near you.
Yeah, why not? Just the Uber Lube mobile, super slick.
Ubermobile,
just
slick, just sliding in.
sliding its way.
I can park that big old van in compact spaces.
Yes, you can.
It says compact, but no
Nope,
problem.
I can squish it in.
We should stipulate that you're actually a sex educator, which is why we're talking this way.
Yes, I do some things.
Children, turn off your devices. This is a non-children episode.
Do you have a lot of children that listen?
I don't know. Occasionally I get an email from someone who's like 14 and they're like, "Hey, thank you. I love your, it's the sex stuff." That
Yeah. Oh,
They're like,
they're
thanks,
hungry
thanks
for it.
for
They're
being
so
honest.
hungry for it. Yeah, totally.
So actually, kids,
Go ahead,
wait,
listen.
just don't tell your parents.
yeah. We're not liable for anything here.
We're not liable for anything.
Sign this non-disclosure waiver here.
I'm gonna turn this camera because I'm a little
Yeah, where you gotta be in
frame there. Yeah, here we go. There we go. Now we're more centered. So this is being recorded on video for the Patreon contributors. I got to get better at that. I'm really bad at, people tell me like, you have to do this bonus content and you have to do this and do that. And, this thing is only for people who contribute $20 or more per month. And I just can't be bothered. So anyone who's a Patreon contributor, even $1 a month, they get it.
You get to see this really sexy video of us.
Yeah, we're naked.
We're naked, actually. Yeah.
Well, she's naked.
I'm naked.
I'm wearing a goofy Hawaiian-looking shirt, but that's the way it should be.
With nice fish. Is that Hawaiian?
I don't know.
It's a fishing shirt.
I was in Costa Rica with our mutual friend Kyle Tierman. Shout out to Kyle. Thanks for setting this up, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.
And he was wearing the shirt, and I said, I really like that shirt.
Did he give you the shirt off his back?
He took it off his back and handed it to me.
Wow,
Isn't
that's awesome. Thank that Kyle. What a guy.
He is literally a friend who would
give
and has given me the shirt off his back.
Wow, that's awesome.
Maybe he just didn't like it. I don't know.
It's
Maybe
possible.
He's like, No, but he wore it a couple days in a row, so I think he really
liked it. Yeah. Wow, that's a true friend.
Yeah.
Friend for life. He's a great guy. Yeah, really happy that Kyle brought us together. So that's.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle. You're the best.
You're the best, Kyle.
Yeah, it's always fun talking sex.
Anyway, so you're a sex educator.
Yes.
Is that what you call yourself?
So I wear many hats, but yeah, I'm a sex educator. So I've been teaching sex ed for close to 10 years. I teach
How old are you?
I'm 32.
32. Yes. So you've been teaching sex ed since you're 22.
About 22, yeah. I went to school for psychology and human sexuality, and then did a training. Have you ever heard of SFSI? It stands for San Francisco Sex Information. SFSI.org, and they
San Francisco Sex
Information.
So it's SSSI.
SFSI. San Francisco.
SFSI. SFSI.
SFSI. I know it's hard.
No, they got to rethink that.
They're in San Francisco.
Uberlube is way better.
Yeah, we'll stick with Uberlube. Well, this is a nonprofit that has a anonymous call in. You can call in, ask your sex questions, and they'll answer your questions. But they also do trainings twice a year to train people to be sex educators.
Oh, okay.
And it's very, very in depth. It's only a 60-hour training, but you go there and it will pretty much make it so that you can see and hear and talk about anything without getting the EBGBs. This just teaches you all about non-judgmental, open communication. At one point, we had this wall of all these different porn clips, all kinds of, like, a variety of things. And they said to focus on the ones that make you the most uncomfortable. So you have like your mainstream heterosexual, perfect pink pussy porn, and then you have a little bit of bestiality on one of them, and then one of just like
wait a minute, a little bit of bestiality.
There's like a little bestiality clip,
bestiality?
Just a clip of some bestiality that changes every 30 seconds.
Different animals?
I don't know. I didn't focus on that one. When I went
to that didn't make you uncomfortable.
No, because the one that made me the most uncomfortable was this one that's just a close up of this woman's face. Beautiful red lips, but she was really lovingly licking some feces.
Ooh.
So I focused on that one because that one was really challenging for me.
Lovingly licking
She's had this smile on her face, beautiful red lipstick, like perfect face, and because
like ice cream.
Yes, like ice cream.
Ew.
And this is what I was focused on because I'm like, well, all right, I'm going to work with people. I do sex and relationship coaching as well, and I do the education, but I never know what's going to come my way. I'm not going to literally be in the same space as someone who's going to be licking the feces unless it's on a film clip. But some people are into that. Everyone, different strokes for different folks. So.
Are there things that are objectively, from your perspective, are there things that are objectively, what's the word? I don't want to say wrong, but I mean, for example, licking shit. Now I know like rim jobs and all that. Yeah. You've both taken showers and you're all, hygiene and yada, yada, yada. Okay, whatever. But literally eating shit is bad for you.
It's probably not really great for your health,
there's a reason it's called shit.
Yeah. It's the waste that your body doesn't want anymore.
Exactly. It's been like all the good stuff's been processed out. There's nothing but bad stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, plants like it, but I mean, health-wise,
if you lick the wrong shit, you could be in a pile of shit.
Yeah, I mean, you could get like
really sick. Yeah.
Hepatitis, right? Yeah, and it's.
I mean, my judgment for what I would see is wrong for me would be things that are non-consensual. Like bestiality to me feels like we don't know what the animal wants. Like the animals, we don't know. We don't know if the animal's saying a yes or a no or what's going on.
If a dog's licking your pussy, it's saying yes. Well, I mean, even if there's peanut butter involved.
There's the dog saying, "I want the snacks." I'm hearing it for the peanut butter.
I mean, we do worse things to animals than letting them lick our junk. Not that I'm advocating it, children.
This is a great start for the children's episode.
There we go. Mom, I want a dog. You know, Dan Savage told me this really funny bestiality story years ago. He has the podcast that people call in and leave messages. Yeah. So some guy called in and left a message that he had sex with horses and he didn't see why that was a problem, right? Because the horse likes it, he likes it, like, you know.
Everyone's happy.
Yeah, it's a win-win. And so Dan called him back and said, look, I just want to clarify this. Are you fucking the horse or is the horse fucking you?
Yeah, that's an important piece of information.
And there was this long pause and the guy says, I'm not gay.
Oh my God. That's great. What did Dan Savage probably had a really brilliant response for that one.
I think he just cracked up and, you know.
Really? He just left it at that?
I don't think he ever talked about it on his podcast.
Okay.
I don't know. He told me that over drinks.
Well, this is still a common thing. Plenty of people think that the behavior determines the orientation. That's that. Even with horses. Even with horses.
Right.
It's surprising.
Okay, so getting back to, we're still in bestiality.
Yeah.
So consent. So you would say in bestiality, consent. Now, it's a very complicated thing, animal, non-human sex. Like I was talking with a friend about this the other day. He wants to do a TV show about animal sexuality and how that sort of reflects on male sexual behavior. And we were talking about orangutans. Do you know how orangutans have sex?
I don't think so.
It's very rapey.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. The males chase the female through the treetops. She's screaming, trying to flee. Wow. He's twice her size. He catches her. They're super strong. And he basically fucks her. And she's screaming. And as soon as it's over, she runs away.
Yeah.
So we're observing that. And we say, looks like rape, right? But how do we know?
Yeah.
That's the way they do it, you know? Or cats who scream in the alley at night, you know why, right?
With the razor dick?
The barbs, yeah. They've got these barbs on their penis, so like they pull out and all this tears them in the blood, and it's like, horrible. But that's biologically necessary. So it's very weird getting into judgments, you know, across species, you know, even across cultures or individuals, right?
I mean, who's to say that orangutans aren't playing into one big rape fantasy?
Exactly.
She's just role playing. She's running away. I don't know. I'm not sure. But maybe she's just.
Well, that's the point. You can't tell from outside.
Exactly. And so I think that's the issue with the consent piece is we just don't know. You say my dog likes it when they lick my pussy with the peanut butter on it, but we just don't know because they can't communicate and tell us. Like maybe it just wants to do it, but who knows?
We know.
It's the peanut butter, man.
His tail's wagging.
Because the peanut butter's delicious.
Exactly. Because then what we're doing is we're superimposing our sort of moralistic perspective on the dog.
Like how that they should necessarily be just like the way humans are, because that's the standard.
Or
for
that
everything.
it should be like a negative, right? Like they wouldn't want to do it in general when the dog's licking his ass and eating shit and doing all this other stuff. I mean, it's like, why would we assume that would be a problem?
Yeah,
I don't mean to be arguing for bestiality here.
No, I think it's a good thing to question. I mean, so I would imagine if say someone was just sprawled out on the couch, the dog had never licked the pussy. They open their legs, and the dog just takes a look and then dives right in. There's no peanut butter. The dog just decides. I mean, maybe in that regard we could say the dog consented.
Sign here,
but was there
and here?
I mean, the peanut butter to me seems like a little bit of coercion, right?
Coercion or just reward
or bribing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. That bestiality.
Yeah. Anyway, how the hell did we get into bestiality?
Well, I was talking about all the porn clips of that training that I did,
and the shit eating.
The shit eating one, yeah, that was challenging for me. And since then, I have never run into anyone that was like, so I need to talk to you about this fetish of mine. I like to eat shit. That has not really come up. I've heard a lot of stories and seen a lot of things. So I also co-own an adult store here in Santa Cruz with my mom. It's a mother-daughter dildo shop called Pure Pleasure.
Mother-daughter dildo shop.
It's a classy dildo shop.
That's a phrase you don't hear very often.
Not very often. No, we're a unique one. And so there, I teach workshops there, but we also have customers that come in and treat us like we're their free sex therapists and want to tell us all about their lives, all their sex lives, trials and tribulations. And through that is actually what I realized. I originally wanted to be a sex therapist, and I realized through that I'm not really interested in the sex therapy component because I'm not really that as interested in not fixing, but working with people on their childhood wounding. I do it to a little degree, but I'm more interested in giving them the tools to get from where they are now to move forward. Where are they stuck, or where's the the shame or the trauma, or all that stuff that's holding them back, and how can we move through that to move forward?
But isn't the way, I'm confused there, because you're saying you don't want to deal with childhood traumas, but you want to give them the tools to move
So
forward.
I still go into it as part of it, the coaching realm. Like we go into it. If they have deep trauma, I would refer out instantly. Right. I have a great line of therapists that I can send them to.
And you're not a licensed therapist,
No,
right?
I'm not a licensed therapist. And one of the great things about being a sex and relationship coach is that we don't have all these rules to abide by. So some of the practices that I use actually involves some really light over the clothes touch. So, and it's very PG-13. It's not to the point of orgasm. Usually it's just for more of an educational purpose. So most people are really in their heads and not even their bodies when they're receiving touch. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll have them lie on my couch and just lightly, rubbing over their clothes, over their legs, their arms, their belly, and just checking in with the thoughts. And constantly it's this, I'm not worthy. It's really hard to receive. I should be doing something. Maybe sometimes they'll just burst into tears. Yeah. And maybe not. Sometimes they're like, no, this is great. Just keep rubbing me up. So it's nice that, because the body is so brilliant. The body it retains so much knowledge in regards to trauma, especially too. So the body is a really great way to also use as the educational piece for healing. So if we're just doing talk therapy, it's like we can only go so far when it comes to that kind of stuff. When it comes to sexual trauma, or not even just trauma, but stuckness. So I really love being able to incorporate that in my practice. And if I was a licensed therapist, I don't know if I could.
You couldn't. Yeah, you're not allowed to touch your clients.
And I'm a rule breaker. I don't want to touch my clients in a non-consensual way, of course. But I'm a rule breaker in if I see the value in a practice, but there's this board telling me that I can't use it in the practice, and I'm going to want to make my own rules and create my own practice. So which I think is important. I'm a little bit of a rebel. Yeah. Rebel child.
You gotta be.
You're kind of a rebel. You're definitely a rebel. You're more a rebel than I am.
Just older. I've been at it longer.
Yeah, you got the rebel thing.
You'll accumulate your
I have lots to look forward
your rebel
to.
trophies. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I read a thing recently. Forget who recommended it. Could have been Kyle. It's fucking Kyle, man.
Kyle's
Like every week, I get another book in the mail that he's
He's sending them to you.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
Yeah. It's cute, but I'm busy, Kyle.
Kyle, slow it down.
Slow it down with the books, Kyle. Anyway, somebody recommended an essay to me that, it was Hunter Motz, I think, who was on the podcast a few times. Really smart guy. Anyway, the essay was, I can't remember what it's called, but the guy said, okay, when we look at the past, so we look 50 years back or 100 years back or medieval times or whatever, we can see all these really obvious things that the culture had wrong. Like 50 years ago, homosexuality was considered a mental illness. People were getting electroshock therapy to try to cure them. And now we look at that and say that's barbaric and ridiculous. 100 years ago, women were too stupid to vote and, shouldn't, and black people, it's like all these advancements moving toward the obvious in many ways, that people are equal and, everyone has the same right to dignity and all that. So his point was, if we can look at other cultures or look back at our own and see this, see how that image got bad? It's because the sun is on the camera.
Oh, interesting.
So we can see how things are improving.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then what can we do looking at our own day to try to figure out what we're missing? Right?
Based on looking at the past?
Well, based on, are there sort of cognitive steps that we can take to recognize what it is that we're missing? It's like you have a blind spot, right? Totally. You have a blind spot, but it's, unless you know the technique, close one eye, move your finger and do that kind of stuff, you can't find it, right? Yeah. It's just invisible to you. So he was saying, like, what can we do? What are some steps we could take to find our own cultural blind spots?
So to kind of create more awareness, So you're saying back when the thought was women were too stupid to vote, everyone literally believed that.
Well,
and so not everyone, but a lot of people
yeah,
did, and they didn't have the awareness to even think
question
other,
right. So there were several different things, but the one that I remember most clearly is he said, always focus on the taboos. Talk about the things that aren't talked about, the things that people are afraid to discuss, because that's where you're going to find, that's where the culture is going to move forward.
Yeah.
Right. So the kind of work you're doing is really important, I think.
Yeah.
Bringing Dan Savage and other people are like, hey, let's talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because when you don't talk about it, it allows all sorts of ignorance and shame to cloak some really nasty behavior, like the Catholic Church, right?
Totally.
Like you can't talk about, it would be outlandish 30 years ago to have even suggested that a priest could have been touching children inappropriately. Yeah. And that just gave them the space to do it, So I think there's like a deeply important social value in saying fuck it, talk about the things people are afraid to talk about, including licking turds.
Even if it's not your jam. I really hope we didn't scare most of the people away from this episode. I think it opens with that. They're like, I'm not listening to this one.
That's right.
If you're still with us, everyone, you are brave.
Yes.
We are proud of you.
Thank you for staying.
Thank you for putting up with us.
No, there will be an intro before that.
Okay, good.
And I'll talk about how wonderful you are. Smart.
Just
and if I remember, I'll say, don't be put off by the turd licking at the beginning. That's just a brief interlude.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, and the more conversations that we can have around anything. Actually, I listened to the opening of your podcast for Kaj, that you were talking a lot about race.
That was the litany of terrible words we can't say. Yeah,
which for a lot of people is like, we're not supposed to say it. We're not supposed to talk about. Oh God, all these things that brush it under the rug, pretend like this isn't a thing, isn't happening. And same thing with a lot of aspects of sexuality too. Yeah. It's just it feels easier to pretend like that's not something that we need to address or is even acceptable to address. Yeah. But when we start to bring it into the forefront, all of a sudden it creates more openness and gets rid of a lot of shame that a lot of people have. Yeah. I mean, that's what you probably see too. I'm sure you get fan mail, people thanking you for, from your book and also from the work that you're doing for talking about, you're not just talking about sex, but all of these issues, political issues, sexual politics, in a way that that isn't running from it. And I'm sure that's really, for a lot of people, just inspiring.
Yeah, one of my proudest moments was when my friend Duncan Trussell, I was on his podcast. You know who he is? Comedian.
Yes,
really,
I know.
Really cool guy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I was on his podcast and he said, "You know what you are? You're a shame exorcist." I was like, all right, I'll take that.
Get the shame out of you.
Shame exorcist, yeah. We will drive it out.
And some people aren't ready for it. I mean, some people are.
That's all right. It's not obligatory. No one has to listen to the podcast.
That's the part of the shame too, right? So it's like, you don't want to create more shame by telling people, shame on you for not being open and ready to get rid of your shame.
Shame on you for being ashamed.
Yeah. Shame on you.
Oh, what's that called? What they used to say, I forget the phrase.
Shame squared. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they used to say, it's like a bait and switch or catch-22, but it's a psychological term. And they used to believe that mothers caused schizophrenia in children by
using that tactic.
Yeah, by come and hug your mother. Get away from me, you disgusting child.
Yeah, it's like that confusing. Yeah,
it's
not like a manipulation, but yeah.
There's a particular phrase for it. I can't remember it.
Anyway. Interesting. I didn't know they thought that was the cause of schizophrenia.
Yeah,
blame it on the mommies.
In the '60s, yeah, it's schizophrenic mothering. That's what causes that. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so taboos, breaking taboos, bringing them out into the open. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's revolutionary. Really important.
Well, and I think a big part of that too, I mean, I could be a sex educator just talking about all the knowledge I know, but I think one of the important pieces is for me to out myself as well here and there. Like you do as well. I mean, it's part of it because it makes me real. Oh, my I talk about this all the time in a way of, and everyone is of course different, but I always talk about like myself as a sexual being. You know, when I was 10, I had rape fantasies. I think I first started rape fantasies via watching TV shows like Melrose Place or 90210, and there'd be a rape scene.
Well, near a Melrose Avenue.
I'm on Melrose Avenue. But I haven't been here the whole time. I know now all my rape fantasies are fulfilled.
No, I just don't want to talk about rape fantasies and tell people where you live.
Oh, shit. Well, they don't know. I mean, I won't tell you my cross street.
Don't say your cross street.
Yeah.
Although, my listeners are very cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
You know how many angry emails I got about that opening that you're talking about? Where I went, I said, Jew, nigger, spig, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Not one.
Really?
Not one.
Awesome. Well, you had a really good, I mean, you weren't just spouting it off and be like, deal with it. You know, you had a good... kind of explanation / I mean, you were good at getting people thinking. It was...
Well, I think it ties into what we're talking about, where we, especially these days, there's this movement to sort of manipulate language around the issue. So we don't really talk about the issue because the words are prohibited.
Yeah.
And the point I was making in that intro is if you don't talk about it, you can't. I mean, the problem is the problem, not the words that are associated with the problem.
We're just putting all the emphasis into the words. Like,
right.
Let's focus on that.
Police language is fine, but you haven't solved the problem. You just get people to stop talking about it, which is the problem in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, my wife's from Africa, and when she's in America, she's like, man, in Africa, there are a lot of racists in South Africa and Mozambique, but they're openly racist. And I even know Black Americans who prefer the racism of the South to the racism of so-called progressive cities because it's not masked.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you don't like Black people. I get it, know, but at least you're honest about it.
Yeah.
As opposed to pretending you like Black people, but then, all this subtle bullshit you're doing.
It's funny how pretending seems to be the lesser of two evils, but it still is... It's still there. And it's actually worse, because it perpetuates the behavior by masking it. Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
It's confusing. It's like schizophrenic mothering.
And
it's like, I love you. Come here. No,
yeah.
You're scary.
Yeah, that's right. I love Black people.
I don't want anything to
Black.
do.
I saw, speaking of touching, I saw a thing in the paper yesterday or the day before that made me like amused and sad, which is sort of a familiar feeling. The Queen of England, some diplomat or somebody was in England, and there was a photo of them going down the stairs, and he sort of held her arm. She's an old lady, going down the stairs. And the headline was, serious breach of protocol when, Australian Prime Minister or something touched the Queen.
Oh, wow.
The Queen cannot be touched.
Do not touch the Queen.
Ooh.
Off with your head.
I mean... Think how sad that is to be the Queen. I mean, none of us get touched enough, but if there's like a law that no one's allowed, is there like a royal Queen toucher? Is
there's someone that gives her oxytocin fix?
Or that's why she has all those little dogs.
Oh, they're the oxytocin. That's their job. Oh my God, bestiality. The Queen.
Come, Corgi.
Join me with this peanut butter. Oh, it all makes sense now. She doesn't need human touch. She's got all the dogs.
What's that?
She doesn't need human touch. She has the dogs.
Yeah.
Like big jar of peanut butter.
It's true. We do that though. It's like the virgin sacrifice. We elevate people and then isolate them.
Yeah. Or they elevate themselves. But I mean, it's
Yeah. I mean, like someone like George Clooney can't go out in public.
Yeah.
His friends all have to come to the house to visit him because he walks out the door and it's a fucking mob scene.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of lose your freedom.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
And you don't get all these people that just want to touch you. Oh, they do want to touch you, but maybe it's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. Keith Richards, you ever read his autobiography?
I don't think so.
It's really good. Oh, man. Anyway, he talks about, like going to a concert or TV taping or something, and the women, girls basically, who would like surround the car screaming and screaming. And it was like, if this car, they would tear me apart. Like they would literally, because there's
rip
this
all
frenzy.
of everything's off.
They'd like pull a finger, and it would actually be death. Mm-hmm. Good way to die. No, not a good way to die. Probably a horrible way to die.
Still
being
probably wouldn't feel that. Yeah, pieces. Torn to pieces by a whole bunch of hungry
like
18-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 at a time.
Now the fantasy begins.
Here we go.
And cue the sexy music.
Dude, Barry White. Why is Barry White sexy music? This obese dude, oh baby, and you see him, he's like beached whale.
He just found his niche. He just found it somehow.
It's that deep voice.
Yeah.
Deep voice suggests big dick. Is that the connection?
I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Now, here's the thing you and I can talk about. I can't talk about with just anyone. Big penises in American culture are seen as like, this great thing.
Glorified.
But there are plenty of cultures, for example, the Kung San in the Botswana, in the Kalahari Desert, to call someone, there's like an insult. You big dicked, whatever.
Oh.
It's an insult
to
have a big dick.
Interesting.
So these things are,
It's cultural.
Everyone talks about dicks. How come nobody talks about how deep someone's pussy is?
Yeah.
Because it's about compatibility. It's not just straight up size.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the pussy is an internal organ, so it's kind of hard to, you don't need to see it. Like the dicks are just kind of out there in the open. So, if everyone's naked, you can tell what's going on with the dick, but you can't tell what's going on with the pussy.
But you can't really tell what's going on with the dick.
Yeah, that's true. It's always the growers and the showers.
And I think, talking about shame, I think that's a big thing.
It's a really big thing in this culture. It's huge. Yeah, and there's the Seinfeld episode with the shrinkage. Everyone always thinks of shrinkage. Yeah, it's shrinkage. It was called shrinkage. Yeah, it's interesting how it's become. I mean, it's just glorified by porn. Like, it became a thing, and since then, it's done a lot. Other than the penis shame, if your cock's not huge, then you want to hide your cock, and you should have shame about it, is what society says. Right. That definitely came from porn, and then
your also flaccid cock,
flaccid, you're even hard, right? Like if you're hard, and it's whereas average in the U.S. is like just a little over 5 inches or something hard.
And again, there are these weird biases like. When we're talking about cock size, we talk about length.
Yeah,
Nobody talks about girth.
Exactly. What's average girth?
Which is actually more important
than
my
length.
Understanding for...
Well, okay, let's talk about... And this is going to be speaking towards heterosexual coupling. So, if you're dealing with a penis and a vulva, vagina, pussy... then the vagina, only has nerve endings for the first inch or so. There's other nerve endings, but has a lot of nerve endings the first inch.
I think, or
the
first
and then
inch,
there's a clitoris. All external. It has the most nerve endings. It's like 8,000 or something there. But when you go in, you don't have a lot of nerve endings until you get to around the cervix in the very back, and there's nerve endings there, but you have to have some really specific technique to hit those. Otherwise, it's too much for the cervix.
Right.
So, technically speaking, you really don't need that much length to get to all the other stuff inside. It's really that first inch, and then maybe the curve up towards the G-spot, which is still... if you're packing 3 inches, you can get to those places.
Right. Especially if you are conscious of the right movements and the right positions, and you ask her what feels good. That's what people don't do. No, they assume everyone's psychic, and then there's the people learning how to have sex from porn. Right. They watch porn. This is how we should fuck. Right. She wants to get pounded.
She wants to get pounded. There's no foreplay. Right. They're not adding lube. They're just like spitting on the orifice, and it's like jackrabbit sex right from the start. And I've seen clients who, women in their 30s who are married, and they're like, well, I don't know why I don't want to have sex with my husband anymore. I'm like, well, what kind of sex are you having? And they're having, porn star jackrabbit sex. I'm like, well, that's why you don't want to fuck your husband anymore, because the sex you're having, one, there's no warm up. A vulva takes 4 times as long to get blood flow than a cock. So there's no warm up to take that into account.
7 seconds?
Yeah, exactly. 7 seconds. And it's different for everyone. And then 2, the movements you're doing, like literally that pounding stuff, you're missing all the parts that, it's not hitting all the places in your body that feel good.
Which gets back to the big dick thing. I don't mean to sound like
let's go
I
back
have
to
an
big
issue
dick.
with big dicks, but I think about this watching porn sometimes, like, which I do for research purposes.
Of course.
When these guys with these super long dicks, they never have contact with the body to body. Yeah. Because they can't go all the way in. Exactly. And that's where the rubbing and the grinding,
getting the clitoris, the labia, all these parts that like all this touch. Right. Yeah. like big dicks. I know we glorify it, but that's just a lot to deal with. Most women I know are like, I don't want to deal with them.
And also another thing, I'm saying all this because guys are so uptight about their dicks, and I want guys with like normal sized dicks. I want to represent.
And big dicks are great too. I didn't mean to just shame big
no,
dicks.
not shaming. What I'm trying to get to is some balance, and that there are pluses and minuses to everything, including this. Another issue is big dicks require more blood, therefore
they get top heavy
erectile dysfunction can be an issue. They can be big and floppy, you know. So guys with normal or less than normal sized dicks, I shouldn't say big advantages, but there are advantages.
There are, and it really is more about the knowledge and the technique and the energy and the connection. Like these are all really huge things.
Right.
If you just because you're packing a huge dick doesn't mean you're going to be great in bed.
In fact, you might be less likely to be good in bed because you think your dick solves the problem.
Exactly.
And women are like, what a pain in the ass that guy is. He thinks his big dick. Like, you never asked me what I wanted.
Yeah. It's all about his dick.
I used to do a thing with women where I would just say, okay, say a number from 1 to 5. 5 just being
like for pleasure?
Like fantastic, 1 being does nothing for me. And then I would just do various things. And
so they're like 5, 5, 5, 4, and it was like, 0.
Yeah, 0 wasn't on the spectrum. -10. Oh, geez, sorry. But literally, like, you know, map it out, you know. And I know that, of course, things change. It's contextual. Today this works, tomorrow that does. This is another thing guys don't understand, that women, when they're ovulating, they might be into something totally different than when they're not. Their sensitivity changes, their hungers change, appetites, all these things are very, you have to check in and find out what's going on with her.
The communication piece for people is so interesting how challenging it is. But I get it because, again, you know, we're talking about, this is kind of the whole premise of what we're talking about is how difficult these taboo conversations are because we're trained to not have them. You know, we're not supposed to talk about these things. And there's this confusing thing too. You know, we don't want to be too much, right? Like too much or not enoughness. We're always battling with those things here. So I know a lot of people who, if they think if they voice their desires and needs in the bedroom, then they're too much. You know, they might not. I might lose the love if I ask for these things. Too demanding or something. I'm too, and especially for women. I don't want to be the needy, hysterical woman. You know, that's the too muchness. And for men too, same. It's everyone's kind of battling it a little bit here and there, and unless you know they're very refined in their communication skills, and it just takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, and some courage.
Yeah,
you know, and the knowledge that it's to ask someone what they want is not a sign of ignorance or weakness.
No,
it's the
awesome.
Opposite.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, "Thank you."
Yeah, you actually care what I want.
Yeah,
and of course you do. You know, every guy wants to be known as a good lover.
Yeah.
You know, and every woman wants to, you know, the guy to be happy and satisfied and feel great. But we assume that we should already know how to do that, as if like it's really silly. It's like saying, you know, someone who's a good mountain climber, right? You don't climb every mountain the same way.
No.
Your equipment's different, your clothing's different. You have to map it out. You think about it. The weather conditions change. You know, so every mountain is a different kind of endeavor. So just the fact that you're a great mountain climber doesn't mean that you show up at any mountain exactly the same equipment and you just do it the same way. No, you adapt yourself. And so a good lover is somebody who looks at each sexual opportunity totally differently.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? What's happening? Who are you? What do you need? What are you into? That's oh, sorry to keep talking here, but you know, I mean, I left these fears behind a long time ago, and it's allowed me to see that that's actually a big part of the turn on.
Oh yeah.
It's not even the sex. I mean, the sex can be great, but it's
that conveys.
It's getting, you know, closer to it and communicating about it.
Well, it also just makes people feel seen and understood. You know, that like creates and conveys connection. That I actually am here, connected to you, and considering you by actually being curious and wanting to understand you more, as opposed to like, you're just a body that I'm fucking, and I'm just gonna do what I want to do based on what I think what feels good for me or what I know.
Right.
And then, you know, we talked about this a little bit last night, that you know, the connection is really what people are looking for. Is that connection. Authenticity is a really big piece of it. People who are real, because beneath that is it conveys safety. You know, when we see, okay, this person's real, you know, they're honest, they're authentic, and it feels like there's a connection here. beneath that, people are like, okay, I'm safe. And therefore I can share my body with this person and I can share my vulnerability with them.
Right.
And that's where great sex comes from.
Right.
When you have those places where people can let down all of their walls, all of a sudden they can be fully present. They can feel all of the pleasure because they're not somewhere else. They're not in their head saying, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe. Instead, they can fully arrive. And so I know we think of all these like, little techniques and big dicks and all these things are what makes great sex. No,
Right.
it's not. It's so much more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. This is a pretty ridiculous connection probably, but I often think of like sorry, this is going to sound so pretentious.
Bring it.
I'm thinking of Chopin and Franz Liszt. All right.
You guys ready for this?
So they lived at the same time in the mid 1800s, and Franz Liszt was the first pianist. Before him, the pianist always played with his back to the audience. He was the first one who turned the piano to its side, which is the way it's so that you could see him play. His technique was incredible. No one had ever played like that, right? But then you have Chopin, who wasn't, he was a great pianist, but not the showman that Liszt was. But there was so much feeling in his music, right? And so when I'm thinking about this difference between technique and feeling, right? Or like jazz, there's some jazz music that's just like, and it's like, all right, great. You can like do things really quickly, but who gives a shit?
And all over the place.
Yeah. Like, where's the feeling? Where's the groove? Where's the blood? Where's the heartbeat? Like I want to feel something when I listen to music. I don't just want to be like intellectually impressed,
Well, that's what they say, for, public speakers or teaching workshops. It's not about the things that you say. It's about how you leave them feeling, right? So I could go up and teach an hour and a half class and probably not do a very good job. I do a great job. I'm not saying I don't. But if I say I didn't for the first hour and 10 minutes, and I spent the last 20 minutes making you feel really, really great, based on the what you're leaving with, that's what you'd remember. You would leave with that, and that says a lot. There's a lot more to it than just like the bullshit that we can say or the technique or. It really is. It is like there's an energetic force behind it, and it's a really important component.
So, rape fantasies at 10.
Rape fantasies at 10.
Coming up at 10, rape fantasies at 10.
Okay, so let me start this with I don't have any sexual trauma other than compliant sex, which is pretty common where I had consensual, I've had consensual sex my whole life, but I have had sexual experiences where there was something that wasn't feeling that great and I just didn't speak up for it.
Which some people are defining as rape now?
I'm not. I'm saying no, I wouldn't. I mean, for me, that was, say someone's rubbing my clit really hard and it's not feeling good, but I'm not saying, hey, I love when you touch my clit, and this is the positive reinforcement, right? I love when you touch my clit, and what I love even more is if you went a little slower and softer, and they're like, oh, I'm doing a good job. So when not doing that, just putting up with it, and therefore that in itself can create little bits of trauma in your body because your body starts to associate hand on clit, doesn't feel that good. And if you keep having compliant sexual experiences, it just kind of reinforces that. So I've had those experiences way after I was having rape fantasies, though, because I wasn't having sexual experiences when I was 10. And as a child, I just, we talked about this too. I wasn't a masturbating child, and I always had crushes on boys.
Neither one of us were. That's funny.
And we're so
I wonder if there's some
intrigued by sex.
association there.
Yeah. I don't know. And we talked about this. It just wasn't really like a curiosity of ours that we just weren't.
Yeah, it just didn't really. I had sex when I was 11.
Yeah. Oh, yes. You started. I think I heard that. Wait, no. Did I hear that on another podcast? Did you not talk about
I don't know. I forget what I've talked about publicly.
This was, yes. Wait, you were talking about the babysitter. I did hear about it. Yeah. I know all about you.
Yeah.
So does the rest of the world.
My presidential aspirations.
Wait, we talked about this. So you had sex at 11, but you didn't actually masturbate till 15.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
It's weird. Those were like weird years because I sort of knew what I was missing. I think like 12, 13, it didn't matter. I didn't really care. I just wanted to be an Indian.
Yeah.
But then...
were you horny though? Like you had a sex drive going on? Or?
I think the sex drive really kicked in at like 13, 14, something like that. And then I was having wet dreams, which was... embarrassing because my mother didn't know what was going on.
Oh, the sheets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like once a month I'd be like, you just slip these in the washer. And, what's going on over here?
I
Like,
spilled apple juice.
Mom, yeah. But I'm still, probably to this day, the most intense orgasms I've ever had were, dream.
The energy, I think those are so fascinating. Like the
Yeah.
power of the mind being your largest sex organ, and that it has the ability to create orgasm whenever, not whenever it wants to, but on its own.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's just
Yeah.
like so powerful. I wish that we could. I mean, and then it shows. If we have that ability, I think anyone has the ability to learn how to give themselves orgasms. It would just be a lot of work to get there. But I mean, if you can do it in your sleep, you could learn how to do it whenever you wanted to.
Just through thinking yourself to
I mean, I know people that can have energy orgasms through breath work and.
I one time, I'm a massage therapist. I studied massage, and for a while I was working in Spain. One of my jobs was I was a massage therapist for women who had breast cancer and also fashion models. I was living in this mansion with fashion models. Anyway, I was giving a woman a massage one day, but it was sort of a casual massage. It wasn't like on the table. It was just a friend, and she had woken up with a weird thing in her neck and all that. So she sat on the. Sorry, I should back up a little bit because she was sleeping with a friend of mine.
Okay.
All right, and he had just moved somewhere and had left stuff at my place, and so she came to pick up the stuff, and I don't remember what she was going to ship it or hold it for him or whatever it was. So, but he had told me that he was kind of worried sometimes because when they had sex, she would thrash around her head like wildly. And he was afraid she was going to like bump her head on the bed and hurt herself or something. So he started joking like, dude, I want to get a helmet for her or something, it really kind of, it's nutty. Yeah. So I knew this about her. Right. And so she came to pick up the stuff. She had this crick in her neck. And so she sat down on the floor between my legs and, I was giving her a shoulder massage. And there was one particular point in her right shoulder that was really sensitive. And so I sort of worked around it and loosened the muscles around it. And then, slowly, as it relaxed, I would move into it more and more. And then I finally got really into the point and was trying to release the contraction. And she came.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With the head thrashing.
Oh, she did the head thrash too. Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's facing away from me. Right. And so I can't see if her eyes are open or closed or whatever, but she's coming. Mm-hmm. And then it was over, and I'm thinking this is going to be an interesting conversation, I think I leaned down and gave her a kiss on the cheek or something just to let her know hey, it's, it's okay, whatever. And it was strange. She never acknowledged that it happened. And it wasn't and she wasn't embarrassed. It wasn't I gotta go and a weird thing. It was just as if she blacked out and didn't know it happened. I really think she didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a complete out of body experience, like a disassociation.
I think
almost.
so. Yeah. Which might explain the head thrashing too.
Yeah.
Like an out of body thing.
I wonder if that is related to some sort of, there's something deeper there, or maybe that's just her orgasmic process, but maybe it's related to something else that makes it so that she completely leaves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
Women, you're straight. We established
straight,
last night that we're both regretfully straight.
It's so painful.
We're missing half the party.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know. I know. And I have so many really close friends who are gay, and it's just
yeah.
I love lots of people, but the thing about gay men is that I really admire them.
Oh yeah.
Because they've gone through this crucible of, facing ostracism and shame and sin and all the shit that society throws at people who are not conventional, and they've fucking faced it down and they've come through it. And so on the other side of that, there's this sort of I don't give a shit. I'm just having fun, and I am who I am. Mm-hmm. And there's this
out and proud.
I love it,
yeah.
And so I'm really attracted to that quality of them. I'm not attracted to sucking their dicks, but I'm attracted to
yeah.
their characters and their humor and the way they live their lives. So it's a funny So I do. I'm really like I'm moving toward it, but I can only get so close, and then it's like, yeah, I just can't take that next step. You know?
Yeah. If the dick's not for you, the dick's not for you.
But we're talking about the early sexual stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as I learned to masturbate at 15, you and I were talking last night about how we both sort of started late, but as soon as we got into it, we were really fascinated intellectually. My thing, I did martial arts when I was a kid, quite a bit, and when I first started jerking off, it became like a martial art for me. It was like I have to learn about this because I recognize that being able to choose when to come was a really important thing.
You did at 15.
Yeah.
Wow.
As soon as I started jerking off, I was like, okay, let's see how close I can get to the point of no return and not cross.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can cross a little and come back.
Oh wow.
You know, let's like get into that. So I haven't like come by accident since Clinton was president.
You got it dialed in.
I mean, and I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this again because I think for young men, that's if you want to be, you know, you want to be a good lover. Train your dick.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly.
You know? Know yourself.
Well, and the thing, so because you got your first masturbation practices, you didn't have any sort of pressure there. So what happens for a lot of young people is, you know, they have to go kind of fast and hard because someone's going to walk in, you know, or they do it in the shower. You don't want to be in the shower for too long. Or maybe when they have an orgasm, they have to be really quiet because mom or dad might hear them.
Right.
And that kind of sticks with them. Our first sexual experiences, whether it's with another person or with ourselves, kind of sticks with us. And that can kind of become the go-to default for how we want to experience sexuality. Right. And so it's interesting that you're saying you got this start of like, you had this, what a lot of people are starting to do in their older age when they're like, okay, now I want to start doing the work to have more control over my orgasms, to get off to not just fast and hard, to get off to slow and soft, to have more powerful orgasms. You know, you were doing this at 15 and already playing with it. But anyone can do it. Anyone can do it at any age. It takes dedication to it.
And try your other hand. That's
ambidextrous jacking off.
It's hard.
When I was teaching this blowjob class last night, I was doing this hand job technique, and I was like, okay, my right hand, my left, and I realized I'm ambidextrous with my jack off techniques.
You'd be great in a three-way.
I'd be like, got them all over the place. Yeah, I had no idea. I'm like, oh my god, I use both hands. This is great. I didn't even know.
You didn't know?
I had no idea. Yeah, that's about it. I just discovered that I was. Yeah, I didn't even notice.
That's great. I was playing pool with my ex-girlfriend one night. It's the first time she'd ever played pool, but she was terrible. She was just like, you know, missing the cue ball and everything was all over the place. And so I decided to mansplain a little, and I was like, yeah, why don't you switch hands? Try this hand. And she's like, really? No, this feels better. So just try it, see, whatever. Dunk. Corner pocket. Dunk. Side pocket. It's like, oh, that works. Like, holy shit. Well, I wish everything was that way.
Yeah.
Just switch hands and suddenly.
We didn't even know.
Yeah.
There you go. That make life a lot easier.
So I don't mean to dwell on the rape thing, but I'm wondering where did that come from? Do you think that's cultural? Do you think it's biological?
So I think that was kind of like because if you look at who I am now as a sexual being, I'm really attracted to, like, in my sex, I'm really attracted to dominance, and it isn't always like we're not talking like rough sex dominance, although I do like that, but I'm really just attracted to like dominance and strength from a male figure as an energetic force.
Right.
So it can come on a very like loving tantric, you know, thing where we're just wrapped around each other and having this like transcendent sex where it feels like we're gonna blast off, but he's still holding that space in this very strong, confident way, kind of like, you know, I got you. You can surrender here. You're safe here. Like I can take control of this, and you can just like melt into me. That to me, like, it totally gets my motor going. And then there's also the other side of it, more like on what you call like the kinky side, or maybe it's like vanilla kinky, but whatever, you know, it's different matter of perspective. But I'm really attracted to that, and it's kind of more of like a daddy little girl dynamic, not like father though. It's more not like, hi father dearest. It's more like just use that strong energy. And sometimes, you know, I do have a partner, and we play into this a little bit with like the daddy, you know, I call him daddy and he calls me little girl, like dirty little slut, or, you know, things like that. And And so that is something that has kind of unraveled. But I think that if it comes, the rape fantasy thing started when I was 10, but I think beneath that, and we talked about the core erotic theme last night a little bit, but beneath that, if you look at my childhood, my dad was very present, but energetically he was not. I did not feel like daddy had my back. I couldn't go and cry to him. It was too much for him. So I think it really comes from that place, not a place of abuse or like sexual trauma, coming more from a great desire to be held energetically by this strong masculine force that's like, you can surrender to me, show me all of your emotions, like cry, laugh, whatever you need, I'm here and I got this. And I think I'm working through all of that in my sex life in a really delicious way. Like it feels so good. It feels just so fulfilling.
So do you think, you used the phrase working through, do you think you'll come out on the other side of this?
And like not have this desire anymore? Right. No, I think what it's doing though is it's creating more safety for me to be an emotional being. So it's working through that. It's been a kind of a challenge in my adult life to, I've always been that woman, that like, I got this, I don't need anyone. Not like I don't need a partner, but like, I'm that person where if I'm in your kitchen, I will look in every drawer and cabinet before I ask you, hey, where's the spoon?
Right.
So it's just like, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to seem too needy. I don't want to be too emotional. I'm Amy, I'm always happy, la, la, la. And it's only been the last, 5 or 6 years where I've really learned through my sexual experiences, but also through partners, through friends, people creating space for me to be a vulnerable, emotional being. And that happens in sex too. In sex, outside of sex, but about sex, it's in all these spaces where it's someone's like literally letting me know I can bring all of myself. All of you is welcome here. You can have, crygasms, you can scream, you can kick, you can, whatever it is, don't kick me, but whatever you need to do as your fullest expression of who you are is welcome here and is safe. And I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to run. I'm going to stay right here for you. That's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me. And it's different for other people. So I've had partners where the rape fantasy thing, because it's not something I role play now. It's just something I have. Like I still to this day, if I see a rape fantasy a rape scene in a movie, it gets a little bit of the motor going, not as much as it used to. It's just I'm a little more jaded these days. But I have had partners in the past who kind of were really uncomfortable with that. They were like, why? There must be something wrong. That's not normal. There must be something wrong with you. Something must have happened to you.
Right.
And I wasn't asking them to like, let's do a rape scene, but I would just, vocalize that this was something that turned me on and that I was attracted to dominance, and it was uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah.
Because they're of the understanding that our fantasies are what we want to happen, right? And there's a big difference. Yeah, like I don't want to be raped. That's very clear. I've always known that since I was 10.
Right.
And I remember thinking that, being a 10-year-old, having these fantasies. I was like, do I want this to happen? Like I'm getting so turned on by these thoughts. But I knew I didn't. I knew that it was, and I didn't tell people right away. It wasn't until later when I became a sex educator that I outed that, but I don't think I had a lot of shame about it when I was younger. I don't know. I wasn't raised with a lot of shame around sexuality in general, though. So there's one thing I had going for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You talked about how your personality characteristics may be related to that sort of fantasy profile. In my experience, and this is all anecdotal, of course, but it seems that the women I've known who have been like sexual submissiveness was an important part of their sexuality are very strong, smart women who are in charge. They're dealing with kids, they've got jobs, they're running a company, whatever. They're like really competent, smart women. And my take on it has been that the sexual submissiveness was a way for them to relax.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, hey, you know what? For the next hour, I don't want to make any decisions.
Yeah.
You make the decisions. You just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Finally let go.
And I'm not even going to be thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I that turns me on a lot. That kind
When
of
you have when you have that
dynamic.
when someone else is can surrender to you, or
Yeah, well, and also that it's that kind of woman. It's
Yeah.
not a woman who's needy
yeah,
in general, who's just like you
or
trying to
lazy.
manipulate
Hello, princess.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I'm just gonna lie here and
Yeah.
sleep while you fuck
You do
me.
all the
Like
work.
no,
No.
I'm not into that.
Yeah.
But that sort of like, hey, can you just drive for the next hour? And I'll be, that's so cool because
Yeah.
it's, I mean, it all ties into my energy as well, but it's
Totally.
also, I love the trust. I love the like, hey, I know you're. I mean, there's this funny thing like topping from the bottom and all that kind of thing where it's like, okay, now on the surface, we're agreeing that I'm in charge here.
Yeah, but deep down.
But deep down, I'm not going to tell you to do anything I don't already know you want to do. So, to what extent am I really in charge? In a way, I'm just doing what you've already asked me to do. So, you're kind of in charge, even though we're pretending. You know what I mean? So, there are all these multiplicities of roles and
Yeah.
rules. Yeah. So, the thing with, the power dynamic, I was asking you about that because I feel like there may be some biological component to it. We're talking about orangutans, which
Yeah.
are pretty closely related to humans. There's also like forceful sex in chimpanzees who are even more closely related to humans, not in bonobos.
Yeah, they're the lovers.
Yeah, yeah.
Like matriarchal, more,
Yeah,
Group-
and every
group love.
sexual.
Don't they like fuck it out when they have some
Yeah.
arguments or just some drama? Like let's just rub it out.
Franz de Waal said, chimps use violence to get sex, bonobos use sex to avoid violence. Right. They deal with stress by having sex. And the most common sex is between females. It's called genital rubbing, where they just sort of rub their clits together. The only combination that doesn't happen is mother-son, which tells me that motherfucker is the oldest swear word that predates language.
Wow.
Even. Yeah.
Interesting.
But what was my point? Oh, the biological component, because I think there's evidence that women respond physiologically to rape scenes, the lubrication. Even women who are totally turned off by it or have had, rape experiences themselves, so they're traumatized by it, their body still responds, which tells me that it's a physiological protection, right? Because you're less likely to be hurt.
Lubricate yourself so that it's not harmful to your body.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And from the male perspective, I think a sort of underappreciated aspect of male sexuality, certainly in the United States, is those years between when boys become sexual beings and can realistically expect to have some sort of a sex life. And there's, anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years that, that lag time between. And during those years, because testosterone is so high, a 15-year-old boy is just a monomaniacal, pussy-obsessed beast. And very few 15-year-old boys are getting laid.
Yeah.
So it's, we laugh about it, I laugh about it, but it's a very painful period.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that a lot of the misogyny in American culture and totally, fucked up approaches to this sort of these power dynamics where they're not contextual and they're, taken to extremes. I think a lot of that has to do with the sense of disempowerment that adolescents
Well, that they don't
feel.
have access. Like they have.
That on the one hand, there's nothing they want more.
Yeah,
and
they
it's
can't
not
have it.
just sex because they can jerk off, and that doesn't solve the problem. It's contact,
It's
it's
contact,
touching,
connection,
it's the attention of a woman, it's being engaged with a woman or a girl, right? But the girls that age who are sexual, they're with older dudes with Camaros, and
Was that your experience?
that was my experience. Yeah.
Sounds like some wounding.
Camaros and
Fuck your Camaro.
mustaches. God damn it, Judy. Yeah. No, I actually studied German for 3 years because Judy was in the German class.
Wow.
And I thought I had a shot. And
Like I may not have a Camaro, or a mustache, but I can learn some German.
I got zits and braces. Yeah, which is a poor comparison to a mustache and a Camaro.
I was a pretty awkward kid. I was the, like right now I'm 5'9" and like I have beautiful breasts, gorgeous.
Absolutely.
But I was like the
which
the
Patreon
late bloomer.
supporters can
now
see
can
for
see
themselves.
Me. She's naked. Just kidding. But I was the late bloomer, a lot shorter than everyone, flat-chested, braces, kind of just like that awkward, gangly one, and had crushes on all the boys, and none of them wanted me, and had that kind of perspective from afar too, and thought, if only I had these, if only I had breasts, they'd be into me. Oh, and then I got breasts, and it was actually kind of true. That's kind of sad.
How did did your breasts are natural?
They're natural, yeah, but I was just a late bloomer.
How quickly did that happen? Because you said I got breasts. Was it like?
It was like freshman year. They just went from being non-existent until the end of freshman year. All of a sudden, then sophomore year, I really had breasts.
Really?
Yeah.
It was high school.
It was early high school. Yeah.
16.
I was like 15, 16, and most of the other girls it was junior high. And
what's that like? I mean, did the sensitivity change?
For me?
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, I guess the sensitivity changed. But again, like I wasn't a masturbator or a toucher or of any sort. And I don't remember, fun fact actually about my breasts and my nipples. I've actually really not enjoyed having the breasts are fine, but the actual nipples, I haven't enjoyed having them touched until recently. This time last year, I was in my somatica training, the sex and relationship coaching training. And we had this exercise where we were fully clothed and we were supposed to touch or tell this other person, our partner that we were paired up with, what we wanted, and they had to keep moving. Every 30 seconds we'd switch. Like, I want you to touch me here. I'd like you to touch me here, and just very demanding. Now I want you to do this. Now I want you to do this. And I had this woman kind of like spread all over me. She was just all over my body, just kind of doing whatever I tell her to do. And at one point I had her rubbing around the breasts, and then I said, now rub around my nipples, even though I had a top on. And it totally eroticized my nipples. At 31, my nipples finally became eroticized by her doing it in a way that I was asking for, through clothes. So, and she was touching them very lightly and slowly and softly, and in a way that didn't overstimulate them. So I think in my whole, in the past, I've had a lot of people touch my nipples, but it was always too much. And so I just assume, associate with, I just don't like nipples, nipple play. But really, they're just really sensitive.
It's like if you've only had bad Mexican food and you think you don't like Mexican food.
Exactly. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you have some good Mexican food, or someone rubs your nipples the right way, and you're like, oh my God. And now I have 3 clits. I have a clitoris and then 2 on my chest. And that's awesome.
3 clits.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's and again, there's the power
3
of
clits and ambidextrous.
Oh my God, I'm really a deep throating too.
You're a deep throater?
I'm really good at deep throating,
really?
And I learned this specifically through when I teach my workshops, and I'm
we're
using
going to pause this podcast. We'll be back in about an hour.
Yeah, these are some of the skills. Yeah. It's interesting. I always like to push the fact that I have these skills, but if you hear me, I also have a very I have a brain. So
all the best deep
all the best
have
things.
a brain.
They do. They have a brain. Yeah, that's good. It's skills.
Blowjobs are funny. It's another thing that makes me wish I were gay, because I think, like, I can remember saying to a woman one time, I can remember, this might be too much. I remember saying, well, there is 100,000 people are listening.
Are you guys ready? You guys can handle this, right? Okay.
No, I remember saying to her, like, without thinking, I was saying, like, if I suck dick, that's exactly how I would do it.
When they're okay.
Yeah, and she said that's the
Why is that? That's a great
the best
compliment
anyone's ever
given.
Yeah,
someone can tell you, like, oh, that's some great head, that's the best head I've ever had. But when you say, like, that's
like, because the thing is, when you're getting a blowjob, you're obviously you're experiencing it from the perspective of the the dick holder, but you're also, at least in my case, you're also sort of in her head and imagining what it feels. Because the thing is, like, the 2 extremes are her on one side, and on the other side, I think last night I was telling you, this woman who gave me a blowjob as if she were reading an instruction manual.
Mm-hmm. Like,
There was absolutely no feeling. So I could tell, like, she's not feeling anything here. She's all about trying to create a sensation for me. Whereas the sensation that I want is to feel that she's really into this. Again, it's like, who's on top, who's on the bottom. It gets really confusing, and it, ultimately it's a non question, because I mean, I don't know. I don't mean to speak for all men, but for me, the thing that is the biggest turn on is a woman who's like totally into it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to the point where she forgets I'm there. It's like her and the dick, and I'm just like some guy who happens to be lying there.
You're just a piece of meat.
I'm just attached.
You want to
to
be
the
completely
dick.
objectified. Go ahead, objectify my dick.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a key thing. I mean, that's the one. Whenever I teach my oral sex 101 classes, people are always expecting like step 1, do this, step 2,
Right.
and it doesn't work that way.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, there's some technique involved, but for the most part, what's really going to work in your favor is enthusiasm
Right.
and authentic enthusiasm, not bullshit enthusiasm.
Right.
So not like this is the best.
So how do you do? I mean, because I've also been. I remember I was with a woman once, and I was trying to talk to her about this, and she said, "Look, Chris, women don't like sucking dick.
That's not
None
true.
Of them do."
That
And
is bullshit.
I know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I could introduce you to like 30
I know
women who would
plenty
tell
of
you
women
you're
that
wrong.
love it. That
And she
love
was like,
it.
"Oh, they were faking it." Like,
So this is the
come
issue
on.
though, because the term we're talking about is a blow job.
Right.
So it's a job. And so do you know where blow job came
By
from?
the way, I've been with a lot of Spanish-speaking women.
Oh, what is it
And one of them thought it was below job.
That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Well,
And I
it makes
never
more
noticed
sense than
until she
blow.
wrote
I
it.
mean, because we're not blowing.
I know. It's
I-
like a below job. It's
Start
perfect.
calling it that.
I know.
I still want to get rid of the job part though.
I know.
And so I don't know. Maybe you know better where the term blowjob came from. Do you?
No.
So Google told me because my sex education did not tell me this, and so the Google told me, which kind of makes sense, that it's actually the act of blowing a load. So it's not the act of sucking. It's blowing the load, and then the job came from sex work. So you would pay to blow your load, and so it became a blow job. This is what Google told me.
Right.
I don't know. It's like the closest thing I've heard to why it would make sense. But I think this is those women that they're talking about. It's a job. They're literally like looking up, while the dick's in the mouth, they're looking at their watch. Like, is this over yet?
Yeah.
You can totally pick up on that. And the same thing. Let's talk about, for those women, when someone's going down on them, if it feels like they're in a hurry and they don't want to have their face in your box, then you're going to pick up on that. It's not going to feel good, and you're going to probably try to rush it. You're going to be on your head.
Yeah.
So I always talk about how if we can reframe it to get away from it being this thing we have to do and find the pleasure in it. Like, you're giving someone pleasure, and find a way to make that hot. Like, I'm so fucking awesome because I'm making your body wiggle and moan and your face is all red. Like, I'm a badass. I'm like a sexual ninja badass because I'm doing this to you or with you or for you. For you, you were getting off on the to you and it's just your dick and you're not even there. Whatever tools we can find to make it something so that it is an act of giving that can be really hot, as opposed to this like thing that I have to do every Tuesday night.
Yeah, well, and also you can go beyond an act of giving. It can be an act of taking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
What can I get for
some women
me?
are just like, I just want to suck your dick.
Yeah.
I love sucking dick, and like, okay,
Yeah.
baby, great.
This is
I mean, I love going down on a woman too. It's like I'm not doing anybody a favor.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh God, I have to do this again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are
You're right
people
about the
that-
job. That's
Yeah.
such an American thing.
It
man.
is. Yeah. It's work.
I had a waitress. This happens all the time. You're eating, and someone will come over and say, "Are you still working on that?" Mm-hmm. Like, oh, fuck, working? Really?
Just trying to relax here.
I'm trying to have my fucking lunch. I'm not working, and I'm gonna go work out. No, you're just exercise.
Everything's work.
Man.
Yeah, it is. That's true. I didn't
Americans.
think about that we use the word work in so much of our
No
daily.
pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Jesus Christ. American
We don't want to
culture.
work.
Yeah. So Spanish, there's no job involved.
I like the below, but yeah, get rid of the job.
Yeah, below.
Just below. How is it going down under? That's Australia.
Down under. Mike.
I don't rephrase it.
No, where the hell were we?
We just were
I
on
was going
blowjobs.
somewhere. Yeah, I'm distracted by blowjobs.
It's what
Of
happens.
course, of
Yeah.
course.
One of my
I wanted to ask you. Yeah, how do you deal with women who are like, look, I don't like it. I just don't like it.
I would ask them why. Like, and whatever the reason is, that there's going to be something beneath it, and it's like what
Dicks are ugly.
Dicks are ugly. Okay, well, all dicks. Every dick is ugly.
My husband's dick is ugly.
Okay, well, let's see. Maybe we should put a bow tie on it.
Yeah.
Maybe we could dress it up.
Yeah, dress it up.
Yeah. I mean, so okay, let's look at you. Like, do you think that person really? The aesthetics, just because the dick is ugly, you don't want to pleasure it. So maybe you don't want to put your mouth on it. Maybe you find other things, like
Hand
use your
jobs.
hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you don't want it right in front of your face, but there's plenty of other things that you can do.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, maybe blowjobs aren't for everyone, and people are going to have their justifications for why, but chances are beneath it, there's some sort of shame or trauma or story or laziness, or, you know, there's a lot of, I don't want to do the work, you know, and not just blowjobs. I mean, this goes, I've dated a number of men who didn't want to go down on me. And it wasn't a conversation. It was like, hey, will you do this thing? It was just, and it was, you know, casual dating where they just never offered. We didn't date for very long, obviously. And I mean, it wasn't just that. They just were very closed off in a number of ways that made it so we weren't compatible. And so there are people have their things, right? But I think most people just aren't questioning it and looking beneath why. That's the thing. It's just, they just go to that. I just don't like it. So
the dick should be enough.
The dick solves all the world's problems.
Yeah.
Or causes. I don't know.
So dick pics.
Oh yeah, dick pics.
Let's do a public service announcement.
Yes.
Gentlemen, do not send unsolicited dick pics.
No, yeah, it's not.
Just don't do it. Yeah. Nobody wants to see your dick unless they want to see your dick. And if that's the case, they'll ask for it. Yeah. Exactly.
They'll ask for a dick pic. They'll be like, hey, how about that dick pic?
Yeah. Although I sent you an unsolicited dick pic.
Yeah, but it was a big dildo. He has a huge 9-inch black dick. If you didn't know, everyone, you can ask him. I'll probably send it to you too.
I won't. That was for you. That was special.
It's pretty good looking.
That was special for you.
Yeah, it was good. And I actually tried to send you a dick pic of myself when I was at a sex toy trade show, and it was this big, veiny, white, glowing dick that spins around in circles. I was going to out-dick you. That was my plan. It's like, you couldn't get it. That was a video. It was a dick off. You didn't even know you were in a dick off.
I didn't. So I just assumed I won.
You did win because mine didn't go through.
If you don't compete,
see, it is all about the big dick.
Yeah.
Not really.
So do you feel when you said you have a partner at the moment, I don't know if you're monogamous or what your situation is, but when you're with a new person, do you feel like pressure, like, oh, you have to be this great lover because you're the expert?
Oh, because of what I do? No, I don't feel pressure. I know that some people are definitely intimidated by me knowing what I do, and they think that she must be into everything, and has really, really high, she's kinky, poly, queer, all those things, and I might be, some of those things, and I also might not be, and
right.
So, but I don't feel a lot of pressure there. I do feel like I have a clear understanding of this is one thing we were talking about this in the very beginning, how communication, we should open the doors for more communication so we can ask someone, what is it that you like, or what is it that you want? I spent a lot of my life not knowing what the fuck I liked or wanted. Like, I had no clue. In fact, that's kind of one of the reasons why I got into this industry.
Right.
Was this great curiosity of who am I, what do I want, what do I like, and what I was doing was relying on other people to show me. Like, I'm just gonna lay here and let you give me the orgasms and teach me what I like. And what happened was I wasn't getting a lot of them.
Right.
When you just rely on someone else, then it doesn't.
Especially American men. Sorry, guys. I'm just saying. Sorry.
So it wasn't until the last, 7 years that I've been more on this sexual journey of an empowered journey of taking matters into my own hands, literally.
Both of them.
Both of them ambidextrous.
Do you masturbate with both hands?
I'm actually not a big hand masturbator. I'm actually not a big masturbator, which is still I just have never been a huge masturbator. Like, I had a big vibrator phase for a number of years, and then I went on a vibrator strike.
Were you feeling numb?
I wasn't numb. I was having this constant, just what the brain does, right? It's like, I can get off to that in a couple minutes, and this other thing's taking forever, so I'm going to go to that. And I was like, I want to stop doing that. So what I did was I just went on a vibrator strike, and now the vibrators come out just for like fun occasions once every blue moon.
Did you ever use one of those? Someone just showed me this one I'd never seen before. That's like a little suction cup.
It's a tiny suction, or is it like the womanizer?
The womanizer.
Yeah, womanizer. Yeah, the womanizer. Yeah,
it just like sucks the clit.
It lightly sucks the clit. It kind of feels like a mouth is lightly sucking, but it also has a vibrating component because it suctions, but also has like a little bit like a thing going back and forth. They're pretty powerful. I've used one once. It was cool. I'm just much more. So I don't walk this earth constantly horny. I just am not. It's just not what what flows through my body. I'm more of an active / responsive sex drive, right? So it's something I create or is co-created with someone else. You know, if I'm with my partner for 2 weeks, we'll probably have sex every day and I'll have a really great time, but I'm creating it. I'm not like, I'm just really horny right now. That's not what's flowing through my body. So I'm not constantly, you know, I don't have a regular masturbation practice because I don't have that just popping up for me. I might do it sometimes to be like, I want to create more energy in general. And I think that through desire and arousal is a great way to do that.
Right.
But it isn't what's normally flowing through my body, which surprises people. They're like, is that because you're so jaded from talking about sex all the time? I remember being like a horny teenager, and then that just kind of stopped when I was out of the teenage years. And it will come up, but it's just not a regular thing. And I think that's a big kind of distinction is we have this understanding that sex drive should be spontaneous. And it doesn't always work the way, especially in long-term relationships when all that like newness fades, you know, and this is...
Right.
And you know, the reason why people open up relationships, or they just stop having sex with their partners, or they learn new ways to, like what I do is to create the sex drive and the arousal, because things fade, and especially if you're an estrogen-driven body, you don't have a whole bunch of testosterone flashing through you. That's like horny randomly. I'm just walking. Oh, I'm horny. There's a cat. I'm horny. You know, that kind of thing. Who knows?
Have you seen the movie about my thing with a cat?
No, you have a thing with a cat.
Oh yeah.
Is it bestiality?
I'll show it to you later. Yeah, it's this crazy story. The people who've heard this podcast have seen it.
Okay.
Google, if you haven't seen it, Google 9.5 Lives.
I'd heard it mentioned, but I don't know. I think Kyle mentioned it at some point on your...
We can watch it after this.
Okay.
It's an experience I had with a cat that I told the story on the Joe Rogan podcast, and this animator decided he was going to animate it, and it's fucking hilarious. He did a really good job, but it's like it's one of several stories that I kind of almost wish I hadn't told. You know?
Now there's a movie.
And now there's a movie, and it was in a film festival and all this shit, and it's like posters and like
I'm very curious about this.
Yeah. It's an interesting.
This is your love affair with the cat?
Yeah, it was.
You've always been a fan of the pussy.
I'm a pussy hound. It was. No, it was the first orgasm I ever provoked.
You provoked
in a cat.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Catgasm?
It was a catgasm.
What is a catgasm like? Yeah. All right, we're gonna have to look into this.
Movie.
Yeah.
You at home can watch it. You know.
I didn't even know about catgasms. Mind blown.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
My life just got a lot more.
But I interrupted you. Oh, you're talking about how you're not horny.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, all the time. And so that was my long-winded story of I don't have a hand sex practice. Oh, have you heard of OMG Yes? It's brilliant. OMG Yes, it's an online program, and it's changing what porn has done to the world in the sense of porn being very penis-centric / fast and hard and not a lot of foreplay. And, you know, porn has really made it so we don't have this great understanding of what vulva is really like. And so what it is online program. It's research-based. They studied, it was 1,000 women to ask them what it is that you like. How did you learn to give yourself orgasms, you know, from external stimulation? Yeah. And they narrowed it down to all these different categories. You know, there's a consistency, there's edging. You know, in consistency, one woman's like, I like to rub the upper left-hand quadrant above my clitoris.
Like an oming.
Same spot, exactly. That's oming, exactly. Right. And another woman was like, that would drive me crazy. I like edging. I like to build it up and then release, and build it up and release, and then finally give myself the orgasm the third time. And they realizing there's so many different options, modalities of the way that people are pleasuring themselves. And so they created this program online. It's a website, and it has a season. So season 1 is all external clitoral vulva stimulation. And it's very tastefully done. It's these little videos of women just telling you, this is how I like to touch myself. And then another video of them tastefully showing you, not to the point of orgasm, but they're naked. And they're like, so I go here and I do this and I do it like this. And some of them even have a little module where it's a close-up of their vulva where you can actually practice the strokes, and it gives you feedback.
Oh,
you know, a little faster, slower, softer. And it's absolutely brilliant.
So you're like touching it on your mouse?
On your mouse, exactly.
Wow.
And it's teaching people who have vulvas how to maybe enhance their pleasure, try new things, or maybe they just don't understand their bodies.
Right.
People who are vulva fans to understand how to pleasure the vulvas. And the cool thing is that there's more seasons coming out. So when people buy season 1, the money actually goes to the research for season 2, which is going to be G-spot, internal stimulation, female ejaculation, like finally research saying that it's a real thing and not just like women peeing themselves left and right. And then there will also be seasons on male sexual pleasure, anal pleasure, trans pleasure, people who are on meds, like sex and depression.
Right.
It's just like, in my opinion, I'm super excited about it, obviously.
OMG, yes.
OMGyes.com. And to me, I feel like it's changing the world.
Really?
That's cool. I've met women
so
that's
you like buy a season?
You just buy the season, and then you buy a season, and then you have unlimited access to that season.
Right.
And there's all these different videos, and it's just teaching people in a realistic way. And, we're all visual. And
right.
I know a number of people that this has like changed their lives. And so again, that was my tangent on, I've created like some self-care practices where I've watched, those videos, and like, I'm just going to try those techniques on my body and see what feels good. Because I do believe, even if I'm not super horny, I do believe a little bit of like erotic self-care practice keeps me embodied and feeling really vibrant. So I definitely try to incorporate that,
it's
even
a tonic.
Yeah.
Just get some energy flowing.
Yeah. Even if it's just like a little bit. And and it just fuels me. You
ever seen a website called Hysterical Literature?
I don't think so.
You'd be great. You would be a really great subject for it. It's this photographer named Clayton Cubitt, really interesting guy, very cool guy. But anyway, it's this project he does, and it's a woman sitting at a table reading from her favorite book with a microphone, and it opens up. It's just a shot like where you are right now, from the waist up at this table. And the first one I saw was a woman named Danielle, and she's reading from a Tom Robbins book, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, I think. Mm-hmm. And she says, this is Tom Robbins, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. She starts reading, and you can see she starts to get a little distracted, but she keeps reading, and then, a little... There's someone under the table.
She's doing.
Is that
touching. What they do for all their?
And the women eventually.
They have an orgasm. They're like, they're still trying to read.
And then when they come back from it, they're like, that was skinny, with Tom Robbins, whatever. so it's this really sort of beautiful thing, because you're seeing someone have an orgasm and they're sort of struggling against it, but in a friendly way.
I think I have heard it or seen an image of it or something. Yeah,
I think there are only like maybe 13 or 14 women who have done it. But the funny thing is, I was in New York, this is 3 or 4 years ago, and I gave a talk at the New School for Social Research, and then the professor invited me out to dinner with some of his favorite students, our grad students. And down at the end of the table was this woman that I like, man, I feel like I know her. Where have I met her? And, eventually some people left, so the group got smaller, and then we were near each other. And I said, I feel like I know you. Are you an actress or... And she blushed, and she said, have you ever heard of hysterical literature?
Oh, you saw her face. That's hilarious.
So it's like, wow, I've seen you come, and I've never seen you naked. Like, what a way to meet a person, It's a really...
She blushed a little, too?
Oh, it was Danielle,
Oh, that's awesome.
And, then we became friends after that, but it was like... I've met porn stars, like I've seen them naked. I've met Nina Hartley. I've, met like various people that I've seen fucking. Yeah. But this was really interesting just to meet someone that I'd seen come, but I'd never met.
And that's also, a lot of porn, there is orgasm happening, and a lot of times it's acting, right? So you're actually seeing this person in their most real vulnerable space.
It's beautiful. It's really strangely intimate.
I'll check that out.
What do you think of oming? We mentioned that.
Oming, I think oming is an awesome practice. To me, it's like tantra without the spiritualness of it, right? Because it's very slow and present and connected, and there's a sexual component to it, but it doesn't mean it's not a sexual engagement, but it's two people.
Well, let's explain to people what oming we're talking about.
Okay. So oming is a practice that involves like this slow, soft. It's 15 minutes, right? It's like 15 minutes in a very specific position. You set up a nest, which to me is very tantric, because in tantra is all about kind of ritual. Like set the scene, make it a celebration of honoring. It really is honoring, and it's honoring in a way that's really deeply connected. So. The woman, it's the female-bodied person, so I won't call her woman. The female-bodied person lays lays down in a specific position, and then the stroker, so it doesn't have to be male-bodied, because it could be a woman who's stroking the female-bodied person, but it's always the female-bodied person is being stroked for the most part.
Female-bodied person? Is that what we're saying these days?
I mean, this I don't know, because they might not call themselves a woman. I'm not sure. I just know that they have a vulva. So like the person being stroked has a vulva, but they might not say woman. I don't know. I know it's confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is. I mean, I don't know. I would think if you have a female body, you'd want to be called a woman.
I don't know. I mean, female body, I'm just saying, or the vulva owner? How about that? The vulva owner.
The VO.
Yeah, the person with the vulva is laying down, and then the other person who doesn't necessarily have one is now stroking. I think it's upper left-hand quadrant of the clitoris.
Like clockwise or
very specific it's stroke. I don't know the exact stroke. It's very slow. You use like a little oil there too, and the stroker is just very present. All they're doing is paying attention to the stroke, staying fully present with that. And the receiver is just fully receiving, and there's no goals. It's 15 minutes, but in that 15 minutes, there's no goals. They're not working towards orgasm. It's whatever happens in there. And what ends up happening is a lot of times, it's always different, but it can be deeply healing. All of a sudden, the person that's receiving, it can either be a really deep meditative state for them, or they have these powerful orgasms that they didn't even know they could have, because now the pressure's been taken off. And the person that's giving, quite often, they can actually, what do they call it, tumescence? That's what I think Nicole Diadone. They essentially resonate at the same level, like the same vibration as the receiver, and they in turn can feel the same thing. Is when it's been explained. So I've seen live demos of it. I haven't actually experienced it myself, but it looks very tantric to me. It's just completely present and an act of honoring, and it can be done by anyone. It doesn't have to be done between two sexual partners.
Right, and it's sort of a thing where people get together at a dinner party or something.
Totally, there's like oming groups where people all like have little oming parties, and then there's little oming pockets all over the room, and it looks like a big tantra orgy, but it's not. Yeah. I think it's a really great way for people to, like, especially people don't have sexual partners, but they want to be able to connect in a sensual way, because you can go and join oming groups and go and be like, hey, do you want to om together? Doesn't mean I want to have sex with you. It's just it's just oming. Right. So yeah, I think it's helpful.
Cool.
But I keep asking them, like, what about the cock? Is there one for the cock too?
Yeah, I didn't want to ask.
Yeah, maybe you should create that.
Yeah. What should we call it?
Doming? I don't know. Something
Boning.
Else. Boning, yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would get out of hand pretty quickly.
Everyone sensually just lightly rubbing.
Well, edging, right? Isn't that's a porn thing now?
Edging, so building up and then not giving the orgasm.
Well, or like very limited stimulation. Yeah. So like if you're gonna come, this is all you're getting.
Yeah, like a tease.
See what you can do.
Yeah. We can just build people up. They're like, oh, I really want it even more. Yeah. And edging also can lead to more powerful orgasms, because you build it up and then you don't get it, and you build it up and you don't get it, and then you finally get it. You just built up so much energy that it can be more powerful. Right. It takes a lot of patience.
A lot of discipline.
Yeah. Patience.
We've been at this for an hour and a half. This has flown by.
There's so much to talk about when it comes to sex. I mean, you like talking about sex. I like talking about sex. Yeah. One thing I didn't talk about. Can I plug my podcast? Please. My podcast. I mean, this podcast. I want to promote my podcast because it's a new endeavor, and it's my baby, and I have a podcast with my friend April, who is also in the sex industry. She's not a porn star, everyone, but she.
You call it the sex industry.
The industry.
I think industry is like machines.
Well, the sex industry. She's in the toy industry, so that would be like the sex toy industry. And so we started this podcast. It's called Shameless Sex. And we do a podcast every Tuesday, and it's similar to what you do. I mean, you're essentially getting rid of, like, what they call you, the shame exorcist. Shame exorcist, yeah. you're doing in all kinds of realms, right? Like you're not just doing it around sexuality. You know, for us, that's kind of the premise. The focus is to promote playful, shame-free conversations around sexuality. So it's kind of like this, but then it's April, and she's like me on 8 cups of coffee, and she's hilarious. And it's just conversations about sexuality, and we hopefully will have you on there someday, because that would be really fun. Like, the three of us would be a wild ride. That would be,
Don't say that.
You're totally coming on the show. Shameless Sex, we're on.
And we'll do that
iTunes.
like in a jacuzzi.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we can video.
Yeah, I did a
Patreon people, just so you know.
That's for $50.
Yeah.
Contributors, I think.
Yeah.
I did a podcast in a sauna recently.
Really?
That was fun. Yeah.
How long was it?
It was probably an hour.
You know what? That would actually. So I have a hard time sitting in a sauna if I'm not doing anything. Like I can still do a Bikram yoga class at 105 degrees because I'm moving. But sitting in a 105-degree sauna is really hard for me.
Yeah.
But podcasting, like, that's a nice distraction from the intensity of the heat.
Well, they call it. It's called the truth barrel, because the sauna is a barrel.
Is someone always doing? Is this someone's podcast?
Yeah, they do it every week.
Always in a sauna.
It's Neil Strauss and Gabriella Reese.
The truth barrel. That's awesome.
Who's a Olympic volleyball champ. She's married to Laird Hamilton, the surfer.
Yeah.
So they have a house in Malibu, and they record the podcast in the sauna, the Truth Barrel.
And then was it extra? Like, would you feel
You're
truthful?
not naked, but you're in swim trunks.
Okay.
You know, and so the point is you're like almost naked, and so the heat and everything might elicit.
Tell us all of your secrets.
Yeah.
In the Truth Barrel.
Yeah. So I don't know. I got the van. I got the Truth van.
He's got the Truth van. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go.
You're going to
jerk off in my van.
Oh yeah.
With my new lube.
With Uber lube. Yeah, you're gonna like it. So silky. It's the best.
So silky.
So silky.
Okay, so you talked about your podcast.
Yes, podcast.
It's Shameless
Sex. You can find us at shamelesssex.com, or look up Shameless Sex on iTunes.
And what about
or Google
people like who might be in the West Coast who want to attend your workshops or fly you in?
Ooh, fly me in,
for
everyone.
their anniversary party where you're going to teach all the women to deep throat or something.
Deep throat skills. So you can, if you're in the Bay Area, I teach workshops regularly at my shop at Pure Pleasure. So you can find us at purepleasureshop.com.
In
Santa Cruz, yes. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can just find me through the Shameless Sex website, and you can just email through there, and it will go right through me, not through me. It'll go right through me to me at shamelesssex.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been great. Mm-hmm. All right. Turn that off.
Bye, world.